My town's farmer's market only has boring vegetables, probably because it's run by silly humans. So in the spirit of imagination, let's make a monstrous market. Every good farmer's market starts with a cute little farm stand, so let's dive right in on the frame. This will be made using some old takeout chopsticks and stir sticks, cut to size and scratched up with a sharp sculpting tool, making everything look like miniature lumber instead of scavenged materials from takeout restaurants. I'll cut slots into my posts to fit the stir sticks more cleanly, then stick each piece together along with a little drop of super glue. To get all the angles just right, I used this fun adjustable angle cutting tool. This lets me get precise and cleanly measured cuts, which are just the bee's knees. It also helps me seem like I planned this all out instead of flying by the seat of my pants and hoping for the best. With the frame framed, we can start building up more of the details, starting with the front panel, which will get spiced up with a little plastic lattice that I think was supposed to be part of a fish tank. I'll also make heavy use out of these fancy cut toothpick ends to hide my ugliest seams. After putting in the back brace, I decided that the whole construction felt a little bit too wobbly and unstable, so to give it a supportive foundation, I made a quick and easy floor using a rectangle of balsa wood and an angled pattern of stir stick slats. Once this is all dried, I'll trim off the excess edges and voila, angled wood flooring. I'll attach the foundation to the frame and keep building up the sides and fixing a few gaps caused by poor planning, piece by piece until we have something that actually looks pretty decent. To beautify the upper rails, we'll soak some toothpicks overnight in a jar of water to soften them up. Once they're out, I tried to curve them into an arc and glue them in place, but this didn't really work out as I hoped. To make things easy breezy and not think too hard, I'll slice up a cardboard tube to get my curvy details in place. Once it's painted, no one will know the difference, just so long as I don't tell anyone. Finally, for the main construction, I'll add a big wooden sign out front that I made off camera using some toothpicks and popsicle sticks. Now this is a nice frame, but our monster needs a place to put all their produce out for display. To do this, we'll slice up some rectangles of wood and glue them together to make a series of angled display boxes in flat spaces. Once we have all these boxes finished, we'll slide them into place and attach them to the frame before adding the last few details. 2 little shark tooth horns on top of the roof. Then we'll take everything we just built and sweep it aside while we work on our monster. Our monster starts out as an armature that I made off camera with some wire and aluminum foil, and unfortunately it's a little bit too big for my farm stand. But you know what? I think I'll just chalk this up to a size discrepancy in the monster universe, where customer service workers are often disproportionately sized compared to their workplace accommodations. This all really to say that I measured wrong, but I don't want to make the wise choice to start over. I'll begin with the torso, getting the general structure shaped out with clay before I can refine some of the details, making the skin stretching over the body bony in an uncomfortable and emaciated way. I'll then add some leathery skin texture by way of a ball stylus on each bony protrusion. After baking, it became apparent that the sculpture was off balance and easily tipped. To fix this, I drilled a hole in his backside and stabbed in an armature wire tail. This will provide some much needed support and hopefully keep the sculpture all right. The tail fell off halfway through baking, but you'll never even know. I'll give our employee some bony legs that will get the same texturing as the torso before we flesh out the foot details. I randomly felt like making a hoof, so I'll make the left foot a smooth, hoofy hoof. I only wanted to make one though, so for the right foot I'll go considerably more dinosaur-esque and make some pointy stompers. Next I'll add a skeletal hand armature to the outstretched wrist. This will make it so that the fingers are more sturdy so that they can hold some little objects later on without snapping. I'll then wrap the arms in clay and work out some bony musculature, making the arms as creepy and skeletal as possible, with a couple bony spines jutting out from the shoulders and elbows. I'll bulk out the fingers with some thin cosclay so that the digits will be flexible after baking. Sticking with the bony theme, I used a few different sculpting tools to bonify the bits and blend them into the wrists before adding some little pre-baked claws into the tips of each finger. The left hand will be similar to the right, but hanging uncomfortably limp and dangly. After another bake, we're looking almost finished, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. The armature is built so that I can have a long supported jaw beneath a larger cranium. We'll get the general shapes built up, and, well, this isn't really what I wanted. It kind of looks like the plant from Little Shop of Horrors. Let's just start over. I made this tiny practice skull a while back, and now I think it's the perfect time for it to shine. I'll stick the skull on my armature neck nub and then deliver a delightful lobotomy so that I can add some wire horns coming out the back of his skull. Once I have the right shape, I'll add a small amount of clay to form the neck and bulk out the bony bits. Then I can add a thin curtain of dissolving flesh peeling back from the bear's skull. Last but not least, we'll pop him off his stand, snip the extra foot bones, and he's ready for painting. After a white primer, I'll come back in and use my airbrush to paint the sculpture bone white before we can come back in again and dry brush the sculpture in a brighter white to enhance the texture. Could I have saved time by priming the sculpture bone white in the first place? Sure. Will I learn from this mistake? Probably not. Next, we'll do a touch of shading with some pale gray to deepen some of the recesses. With that finished, I'll start to touch up the raised spines, bony protrusions, and fingers with blues, moving from near white to deep oceanic. This will help the unique features on the creature stand out and also match the color scheme I have in mind for the farmer's market stall. It was also a fun way to test out using a wet palette for the first time ever, and boy did it work a treat. Next, I'll paint his decaying face skin with the same blues, darkening at the ragged edges. As a last finishing touch, I'll paint each fingernail, toenail, and hoof, all with a shiny gold. A couple dots will wind their way up his chest and horns as well, just for funsies. Last but not least, I'll deepen the soulless recesses in his eyes and put some merchandise in his hands. And let's move on to the market stall. To start off, we'll prime our wood white, then shake it back to brown. The entire thing will then get a thick black wash to darken the brown coat and sink into some of the wood grain. The wash was a bit too thick, so I went back in and added some of the original brown everywhere the light would hit first, followed by a deeper shading in a beautiful reddish wood color. This will hopefully add some dimension and depth to the shelving. Lastly, I'll add a few lighter shades to highlight the brightest edges and breathe some life back into the wood. Finally, for the painting here, we'll name our shop. This looks nice and all, but the harsh sun would bake all of these vegetables to a crisp, so it's canopy time. I'll take a square of cloth and cut it to size. Once I'm satisfied with the fit, I'll take it off and break out my airbrush for the painting. Sticking with our Wicked Harvests theme, I'll stripe the cloth in light aqua, then tickle the edges in gold. The cloth then fits over the horns and posts and held into place with a couple gentle toothpicks of superglue. But now, these shelves are looking a little bit bare, so let's fill them up. To start, I made a few glowing souls. These are just blue LEDs covered in blue-dyed silicone caulking. I'll set these in place, do a little soldering, and presto! Well, almost presto. I just couldn't get this one soul in the back to light up. So let's just pretend that everything is fine. To cover up the wiring, I'll tuck a little curtain into place and then we'll continue on with the produce. First adding a large crystal to catch the light, followed by some otherworldly horns, and some smaller purple crystals. On the bottom rows we'll place some golden idols, then a collection of mostly fresh human hearts. The next display will be filled to the brim with large sharp teeth, and then the last front box will get the most monstrous farmer's market produce of all, fresh organic carrots. The side shelves will then get 3 mysterious bottles filled with strange fluid, and the second shelf will get, this thing. I have no idea what it's supposed to be, but I saw a sea urchin and got inspired. Of course, any farmer's market needs prices, so we'll write up this cute sign stating clearly each item and its cost. And once we put the sign in place, that's actually us finished. Now let's go to market. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and got a nice glimpse of what farmers markets are like down in the underworld. We'll see you next time.